it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, a slightly drunk Jack from Cultaholic.com after myself and Sam have just reacted to NXT TakeOver New Orleans on the live stream on YouTube, and a lot of people donated some money and it was very kind of them, but it made us drink quite a lot of alcohol. So I'm trying my best to work through this in a sensible and concise and informative and analytical fashion, and I will endeavour to do so for you, the people of YouTube.com. But yes, I'm Jack from Cultaholic.com, and this is what happened at NXT TakeOver New Orleans. There were some fantastic matches on this show. First of all, we started off with the ladder match for the newly created NXT North American Championship, featuring Ricochet, EC3, Velveteen Dream, Adam Cole, Lars Sullivan, and Killian Dain. This match, right, this sounds like a bit of a strange thing to say, but it didn't remind me of any particular ladder match that WWE have ever put on. It reminded me the most of that recent NXT War Games match. The way that NXT go about structuring big multi-man, weapons-based, environment-based stipulation matches is very specific indeed. You can definitely tell the sort of style that NXT have when it comes to putting together those matches. I don't know who the road agents are in charge of that sort of thing, but they do a very good job of keeping it distinct and retaining that NXT feel. This match was pretty much what War Games was, but maybe a little bit better. I'm going to say it was on like an even sort of level, because not everything was perfect. It was kind of ragged around the edges. A lot of people took some nasty punishment. A lot of people were bleeding from the face. Velveteen Dream got cut just above his eye. Killian Dain was bleeding. I think Lars Sullivan was also busted open. But it was still a chaotic and structured match. You know, that right blend of chaos, anarchy, and structure and storytelling as well. Now, I will point out that because this is NXT and not the main roster, maybe that balance was a little bit more towards the chaos and anarchy side of things than the structure and storytelling side of things, because everyone was kind of predicting the same sort of thing, like Lars and Killian Dain are going to take each other out. And when people say that, they expect one big definitive set piece spot, like we'd see on the main roster, where they both take each other out. No, it was almost like they did sort of take each other out in a way, but everyone was kind of taking each other out. It was a bit more of a mishmash based around action rather than storylines. I won't say that this wasn't a theme of the event as a whole, because storytelling became very, very important later on, as I'm sure we'll find out. But I think this match was more, I don't want to say a spotty or a spot fest, because it wasn't, and everything made sense. I just think it was more about the action than it was the story, in a way that if it was on the main roster, a lot of things would have been more telegraphed and more spelled out for us. But this one was more freeform, and I enjoyed it for that. Now, before the match, a lot of people thought that EC3 was going to win. I was a guilty party in that. I'm included. I also thought EC3 was going to win, but he didn't. It was that sneaky bad boy, Adam Cole, who basically took advantage of Ricochet turning his back, tipped him off the edge of the ladder, clambered up, and pulled down the North American Championship. He's the first ever NXT North American Champion, and even before this event, we could tell that NXT or WWE were going all in on Adam Cole. They think he's fantastic, clearly. They gave him a stable when he first joined. He was the big star of the War Games match, and now he is their first ever North American Champion. I totally agree. I think Adam Cole is one of the strongest in terms of selling and facial expressions in the entire world of wrestling right now. He's also very exciting to watch offensively, and he's just the best at being smug and horrid, and I really love it. So even though I predicted it would be EC3, and even though a few other people really wanted to see Velveteen Dream or Ricochet pick up the title, I have no quarrels at all with Adam Cole picking up that belt, and I think it's a great decision, and I hope he does really good things with it as well. Next up, the NXT Women's Championship match between Shayna Baszler and Ember Moon, the champion Ember Moon, or should I say former champion, because Shayna Baszler did indeed pick up the victory here. This match made me realise, again, as I always seem to do when I watch an Ember Moon match, that Ember Moon is fantastic when it comes to telling a story through her matches. I also kind of got a sense in this match that there was a whole kind of MMA style versus pro wrestling or sports entertainment style thing going on, because whenever Shayna would brutally reverse one of Ember's moves into just a simple, effective, utilitarian MMA submission, Ember Moon would come back and do a slick pro wrestling reversal of one of Ember Moon's MMA moves. Like, that seemed to happen a few times. I don't know if I just thought that a bit more in my head because I was looking for it, because I was convinced it was deliberate, but that seemed to happen for me. I was well impressed with Ember Moon here, and Shayna Baszler as well, to be fair. I think Shayna really I think she gets a bad rap because she's an MMA girl and she's one of the 4 horsewomen of MMA. Obviously, Ronda Rousey gets a bit of flack as well for that background. But I think that she is a bit of a natural when it comes to pro wrestling. And I think in the very short space of time, we'll see her improve and improve and improve. And because she won the title as well, that's the perfect opportunity for her to kind of be thrown in at the deep end and just kind of learn as she goes. And I think that she'll be a very good champion. And I think that by the time she loses it, a lot of people's opinion of Shayna Baszler will have changed for the better. The finish to the match played heavily off the previous match between the two, where Shayna Baszler had Ember Moon trapped in a submission, but Ember managed to roll through into a 3 count with the submission still applied, but without tapping out. Again, Ember Moon refused to tap out to Shayna Baszler, but this time, unlike last time, she couldn't escape from the hold, and instead, she passed out, and the referee called for the bell and awarded Shayna the NXT Women's Championship. Next up, the 3-way tag team match for the NXT Tag Team Championships and for the Dusty Rhodes Trophy as well, the Dusty Rhodes Classic Tag Team Tournament Trophy. This was between the members of the Undisputed Era, Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole, because Bobby Fish is out injured and there's a Freebird rule in effect. Pete Dunne and Roderick Strong, the kind of odd couple, and the Authors of Pain, one of the most destructive tag teams NXT has ever seen. Now, I'll admit, I was a little bit guilty before this event of paying little attention to this match. Compared to the other big matches on the card, I was like, yeah, cool. There's Almas versus Black, there's Ciampa versus Gargano, there's the women's title match. Oh, the tag match as well. There's the ladder match for the North American Championship, when really, I should have looked at the guys in the match and thought, you know what, this is going to be a fantastic match, and it absolutely was. More than any match on the card, I think this one started off at a frantic pace. It had guys hitting moves on each other, turning around and being blindsided by the other opponent in the ring who they didn't see coming. There was a lot of that sort of stuff. This match really never took its foot off the gas pedal. It was really, really fast-paced. Everyone was doing their thing. The Authors of Pain obviously slowed things down a little bit naturally because that's just their style, but whenever they got involved, it was still very exciting in its own unique way. But more than anything, this match is going to be remembered for the shocking twist at its finish, at its ending, at its crescendo, at its conclusion, at its climax, at its denouement. That's right, everyone was kind of thinking, well, the champions are going to lose their titles now because Adam Cole is so banged up from that ladder match that he had to win. He came out with his ribs taped up. Kyle O'Reilly was wearing both the belts around his torso because Adam Cole's ribs were taped up. That's brilliant. That's so good. That's the sort of thing that sets NXT apart from the main roster. I think that wrestlers have these little sparks of ingenuity and it really helps them with it. But he got taken out in the match by being slammed clean through the announce table. It was a very harsh bump and the camera kept cutting back to him being consoled by a referee and checked on, but he never looked like he was going to get back into the match. And then, because he was taken out, the Undisputed Era pulled out their secret ace card, I guess, in the form of Roderick Strong. Yes, with Pete Dunne seemingly having the match won, Roderick Strong shockingly turned on his partner and essentially granted the match and the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Tournament Trophy and the NXT Tag Team Championships to his new friends, the Undisputed Era. They celebrated with the belt at the top of the ramp. Bobby Fish came out in street clothes with crutches because he's injured at the minute, and they all did that. And they all did that. I got it right in the end. They all did that and celebrated, and there's a new dominant force now in NXT, and it's very exciting. And Adam Cole is a double champion. He's the NXT North American champion and the tag team champion, Freebird rule kind of in effect. And I'm really pleased because, for one reason mainly, Roderick Strong, if you followed him on the independent scene before, is infinitely better as a heel than he is as a babyface. And I quite liked him as a babyface, but I don't think he had too much depth and substance to his character beyond being a family man with a wife and a young child. Now as a heel, we're going to see something really good from Roderick Strong, and I'm expecting to see support for him skyrocket online just because I can't wait. He's such a good dickhead heel. I can't wait. Next up, the NXT Championship match between the champion Andrade, Cien, Almas, and Aleister Black, the challenger. This match was not quite as good, I don't think, as Almas versus Gargano, but it was in the same ballpark. It was a very good match between two very capable wrestlers, and I honestly think that maybe one or two people aside, Andrade Cien Almas is the MVP of NXT right now. He is a phenomenal main event level heel, and I hope that if he does go up to the main roster soon and, you know, doesn't get bogged down in the whole main roster transition that we see from time to time, I hope that he becomes a main eventer on the main roster as well. I want Andrade Almas to be WWE champion one day. I think I'm that big a fan of Andrade Almas. He is an incredible professional wrestler. And that's not all down to him as well, that's partially down to Zelina Vega, who is one of the best heel managers in the business right now. She didn't just get involved in the match verbally, she got involved physically, as she often does. A little bit more than usual, actually. She hit a head scissors on Aleister Black at one point into the ring steps. She also did one off the top rope into the ring, and he took a horrendous bump on the front of his head, like a deliberately horrendous one. It wasn't anything unsafe or anything like that. But ironically, it was Vega's involvement that cost Almas the title that he owed so much to her involvement in the first place. Yes, with the referee distracted, Vega got on the top rope, looked to jump onto Black. He ducked, she landed in Almas's arms. Black turned around, hit the spinning back kick, the Black Mass, and pinned Almas to become the new NXT champion. I was surprised. I thought that they were going to give Almas the ball and continue to let him run with it, and maybe Drew McIntyre would come back and challenge him again for a rematch, or maybe like something like that would happen. But no, it looks as though Aleister Black's been fully given the ball now that I thought they'd given to Almas, and maybe this means that Almas is going to go back up to the main roster, or straight up to the main roster, I should say. Although I don't know if it'll be that quick, because on the pre-show, Drew McIntyre did specify that he's coming for Almas whether he won or lost that match. Obviously he lost, and that frees up a little feud slot on the NXT schedule. So I think maybe we'll see Almas versus McIntyre. McIntyre will avenge his earlier injury, and then Almas will come up to the main roster and hopefully just kill it, just do really well. Now, after watching Almas versus Black, I thought that was going to be the best match on the show. I thought nothing could top that. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was slick. It was well executed. It was fast-paced in the right places, slow-paced in the right places. And for a good portion of the main event, Ciampa versus Gargano, I still thought that. I still thought, you know what? This is really good, but Almas versus Black is going to end up being the best match of the night. And then things just kicked into a higher gear, and we saw something that we've never seen before in NXT, or maybe even in WWE. This Gargano versus Ciampa was the sort of match that I don't think I've ever seen before. That sounds weird, but I think it's true. I described this match on Twitter as the sports entertainment version of a main event high-level New Japan clash between two storied rivals. It was full of storytelling tropes and callbacks to previous matches and various aspects like the crutch or the knee brace, things that recurred in the match and really meant something beyond their physical means, I guess. Like they meant something metaphorical as well. But that's the sort of thing that we often see in New Japan in terms of storytelling within the ring. Different moves mean different things, different sequences mean different things, there's callbacks. But in this case, because it was in NXT, the sports entertainment kind of business, I guess things were more overt and colourful and cartoonish. So rather than Okada holding onto Tanahashi's arm, you had Gargano and Ciampa blatantly sitting down next to each other and evoking previous spots in previous matches. You had Gargano and Ciampa both making liberal use of the crutch, and it was a bit more obvious for a Western audience, but I think at the same time it was just different as well. It wasn't a New Japan match, it was a blend of New Japan and WWE, and it was just, in parts, it was wrestling perfection. Now, I don't think this match was perfect itself, I just want to make that clear. I think that it was a bit slow in parts and maybe took a little while to get going, but once it got going, oh, I can't describe it. Like, it's not the best match I've ever seen, and it's certainly not immediately become my favourite match or anything like that, but it's one of my favourite matches just because of how different it was. The ending came when Johnny Gargano had Ciampa beat, took the crutch that had caused him so much strife over the previous few weeks, broke it in half with his foot to get a sharp end, and went to stab Ciampa in the head. Ciampa looked at him and looked apologetic. He looked sad for what he'd done to Gargano over the weeks, and instead Gargano looked at him and couldn't do it. He couldn't finish his friend. As Mauro Ranallo recalled for us, the time in the Cruiserweight Classic match between the pair about 2 years ago now, where Ciampa couldn't finish off Gargano and led to his downfall. Gargano then sat down next to Ciampa as everyone in the crowd went, "No, don't trust him, don't do it, don't be nice to him." Ciampa predictably grabbed his knee brace and went to lay in a cheap shot on Gargano. Gargano saw it coming, reversed it into the Gargano escape, and then transitioned into kind of an STF style move with the knee brace across Ciampa's face. Ciampa tapped out, and Johnny Gargano picked up a monumental victory. I'm speechless in terms of this match. There was so many good things that it's really hard to recap. The best way for me to recap it is to tell you to go and watch it on the network immediately, right now. If you haven't seen it, watch that match. It's so good. Now again, I will stress that you know, there are two excellent matches on this card, and I don't want to take too much away from any match on this card. It was a brilliant show, but especially not from Almas versus Black, which was an excellent match in a different way. It was an excellent match in a similar way to Gargano versus Almas. It was slick, it was excellent in terms of moves and transitions and pacing, but Gargano versus Ciampa is like nothing I've seen. Certainly not in WWE or a show under WWE's banner for a long time. The overt storytelling mixed with the callbacks and the history and the depth of the match is really something quite special. And even if the execution wasn't quite as on point as maybe Almas versus Black, I still think that it's probably eclipsed it in terms of storytelling on the whole. So that is what happened at NXT TakeOver New Orleans. A fantastic show in my opinion. Potentially the show of the year so far. I think when we look back at the end of 2018 at all the various pay-per-views, we might think, yep, that might have been show of the year. Definitely top 5, I reckon. By the time we get to the end of the year, this will be in contention for the top 5 shows of the year, if not a bit higher as well. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. You can follow me on Twitter at JackTheJobber. You can follow all of us at Cultaholic. And please do check out our Patreon as well, patreon.com/Cultaholic. And never forget, of course, to join us.